Hola, niños! Preterite irregular stems. Check out that irregular stem. That is a joke only a Spanish teacher would love.
Or even get.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay.
Okay, kids, so we're going to get into some more preterite verbs. Kids, these preterite verbs are the heart of what we do in Spanish too. Pay attention, okay? So we have some more irregular verbs. We have hacer, we have tener, estar, poder, and they follow a pattern that is similar to the verb hacer. And that's a new verb for you kids, okay? So if you were to dissect a verb, the verb would have an ending. You know, you could circle it, an ER, an IR, an AR. What's left is the stem. So what you do is you're going to memorize the stem, you're going to memorize certain endings, and you're going to put them together. It's not so bad.
Just like a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun. Okay, if you are interested in the book,
the verbs are on page 142.
So this is what the book has. We're going to go and put this on the same sheet that you've been putting all your other verbs. So this sheet that you have already should have ser and ir filled out, and we went over that in the last video, which I'm sure you watched and are riveted by. But we're going to now say the book considers this review, but we don't. It says recuerdas. Dar is an irregular verb in the preterite tense as well. It's an AR verb, but it has these irregular endings. Di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron. We're going to move a little fast, so if you need to, feel free to pause anytime, rewind, watch as many times as you'd like.
Fill in that chart, kids.
Then we also have ver. The book considers this a regular verb, and the only reason we don't and we put it in this irregular section is the fact that it has no accents. If it were a regular verb, it would have accents in the yo and l form, but alas, it does not. And notice the similarities between ver and dar. They pretty much are conjugated the same except for that first letter. Moving on to hacer. We have hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicistes, and hicieron. Notice that the stem is different in all forms except for the one we made blue, which is the reason this one is in the irregular verb section and not the irregular stem.
Basically, kids, you need to write these down. You need to memorize them. And notice there are no accents. And
the reason that this one is hizo instead of having the C is you'd have to pronounce it eco, and that just sounds funny. So here's the note that Ms. Davidoff just mentioned. All the verbs in this section have no accents, not one accent mark in this whole section. Ready to move on? If not, pause.
Now we have this full chart of a bunch of different verbs that it doesn't outline in the book, but we decided to go through it with you guys here. We also have a song to help you remember some of these that we're going to talk about later. So first we have tener, which changes in the stem to tuv. Tuv by itself, but when you make it in the yo form, it's tuve. So all of these have specific endings that you'll see at the bottom you're going to write in. So we just put the root, the little stem part, in the boxes for you. Then we have anduv, or anduve, estuv, di. These are hard to pronounce without the end.
Yeah.
Produf, condu, tradu.
And notice all of those that are in blue have a star by them. That's going to come into play later when we get to the endings at the bottom. And the one thing they have in common is they all end with a J. Okay.
And here we have pus, pud, soup, kis, y vin.
So once again, you just have to know that these stems are going to go with all the endings that are right underneath this chart. So all of these use the exact same endings. It doesn't matter if they're an AR verb, an ER verb, or an IR verb. They all have an irregular ending for this section. The yo form is going to end with a. Tuve, anduve, estuve, dije, traje, produje. Hopefully you get the point. The tu form endings are iste, tuviste, pusiste, pude, pudiste. Oh, and notice that there's no accent. Tuvo, anduvo, estuvo. Emo, so even if it's an AR verb, it has an IMOS ending. Amazing. Crazy Spaniards. Istes, so like trajistes, produjistes, condujistes, supistes. And last but not least, the section that's a little more confusing, is hierron or erron. And if you have noticed, we've color-coded these so that the green ones go with the green ending, the blue ones go with the blue ending. So remember this, if it has a J at the end, you do not need the I in the ending. So all the blue ones will be like dijeron, trajeron, produjeron, but the rest will be tuvieron, anduvieron, estuvieron. So for verbs starred, use the erron endings instead. And note again that everything in this chart has no accents.
I think the best way to go about learning these is to memorize the stems and then memorize the endings. And of course, remember that what we call the J stem verbs like decir, traer, producir, etc., those verbs, you drop the I in the third person plural ending. So I think you guys might want to kick it old school and make some flashcards with the infinitive on one side and the stem on the other.
That sounds fun.
It
Also,
does.
singing is fun, and for me, all throughout all of my tests, I would hum the song to myself, sounding a little crazy, but it works.
Crazy
it does.
works.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to do the song in just a second. Here we go.
Fui, di, vi, quise, hice, vine yo, puse, pude, supe yo, dije, traje, contuve yo, tuve, estuve, anduve yo, preterito, irregular, ya yo sé los verbos.
Okay, kids, now we're going to do some practica. You're going to text your answers to the following questions to your teacher's Google Voice number. Or, of course, you can write the answers down on a piece of paper and hand them in tomorrow.
That's kicking it old school.
Yes, like Mrs.
Old
D.
school works.
Mrs. Davidoff.
Okay, I was going to say we're both Mrs.
I
D, but that's
know.
fine. Okay, here we go. Practica. Take a minute, pause this video, and see if you can get these 4 questions answered correctly in the preterite.
So first, for one, we have yo no hice la tarea, the yo form, hice.
Nosotros estuvimos en la escuela esta mañana. We were in school this morning.
Ella pudo estudiar para el examen. She was able to study for the exam.
Luckily, she probably got a good grade.
Good thing.
Ustedes tuvieron tiempo para cocinar. You all had time to cook.
Ooh, delicioso. Lo hicimos, estudiantes! And now that you know what hicimos means, you'll know that we did it! Just like Dora. So in the words of Dora, adios.
Adios!